Tony from Philly, Jamie from Indiana, Gene from New York City, Cass, New York, Keene, New Mexico. We got some fireworks happening on the screen. Dylan from Rhode Island, Iman from Yonkers, Freddie from Portland. Hello from San Diego. What's up, Army? Benson Jones, originally from North Carolina, now based in LA. All right, we survived the torrential downpours together. The rain. Luis, I'm in St. Louis, originally from Dominican Republic. Dante, I feel like you were at the last one. Nice to see you again, Luis. Bien. Dante, Minnesota. What's up, Theo? New York City. Greg, New Jersey. Jordan Knox, NYC. Cool. Nikki, I was just in LA all last week. You were looking good. Oh, sharpen every photo. I saw you at some of the Grammy events. Nice. Oh, very cool. Yeah, we just finished Lee Wilson, big fan of Ari's take. Oh, thanks. Hi from Puerto Rico. Yeah, we just finished Grammy week here in LA, and it was a wild time. It was a lot of fun. A lot of events, a lot of parties, a lot of meeting people. What's up, David? Hey, Sam from Boston. Cool. So we have a lot to cover this afternoon, I guess, as it is now, LA time, wherever you are. I feel like most are in the States, but I did see some that were based elsewhere. But wherever you're coming to us today, thanks for joining us. And we are going to get started. Let's get started now, just because I know that more people are going to be coming in. We are, of course, on Musician Standard Time. So y'all are the early birds here. And so I appreciate you showing up on time. But I know people will be coming in. So what's up, Amanda? Hi, David. Trammell from DeSoto, Georgia. Right on. Amanda from LA. Demian from Philly. Cool. All right. So we got a lot to cover, and I want to make sure that we get through it all. And we have some special guests here that will be joining us at the end. And Cass, yes, thank you. The sessions will be recorded, and you will get the replay to this. I believe it's a limited replay because this is meant to be live. Like, we're very happy that you showed up live. And you're going to get all your questions answered today. But yes, you will have access to the replay for limited time. And just look out for that in the next couple days. An email from Tidal, and they'll send it to you. So J-Trill from Canada. All right. Cool. So let's get started. I'm going to share my screen. We got a bunch to cover today. Okay. Can y'all see that? Great. Yes, thank you, Michael. All right, so let's get going. So show me the money, how royalties work and how to get paid. And this, of course, is presented by Tidal. I'm Ari, and then we'll be joined by Chloe at the end. Actually, and another special guest at the end who's not listed here. So cool, let's get kicking. So for those of you who don't know who I am, I'm Ari Herstand, lifelong musician. I've played over 1,000 shows everywhere, from living rooms to arenas, everything in between. And just kind of a little background. You know, I initially went to school for music, as going to be like a classical trumpet major and music educator, a high school band director. I thought I was going to be for music education in Minnesota. I realized very quickly that I did not want to be a band director and that I did not want to continue studying classical trumpet. So I started performing out. I transferred to a music industry school. But when I was there, they kind of taught us the history of the music industry. Now, mind you, this was just a little time stamp here. This was around 2005, 2006. This is like, you know, right at Napster had just kind of died. iTunes was on the rise. This was downloads. You know, Facebook was just amongst universities. MySpace was all the rage at this time. This was pre-YouTube, pre-Instagram, pre-Twitter, pre-all of that stuff. But everything that I learned in school, you know, I realized as soon as I got out of school that none of it was relevant. They taught us in when I was taking these music business courses and songwriting and all of this stuff that like the only way to have a music career was to get signed to a record deal. That's what they taught us. And all the classes on music business that I was taking at the time were here's how to negotiate record contracts and all that stuff. So as soon as I got out of school, I was like, all right, where's my record deal? I want to start my music career. And they told me that I can't have a music career without a record deal. I learned very quickly that, that they left out some important information, or maybe they just didn't know, but because, they didn't really say how to get a record deal. And all the music business books at the time were written by lawyers. They all talked about how to negotiate deals, but none of them talked about how to get a deal. And I was like, all right, well, I can either sit around and wait for this deal magically to fall in my lap, because that's apparently what happens, or I can do what I love to do, and that is play music, record, get in studio, release music, and figure it out. So, of course, I chose the latter. Fast forward a few years, I was touring the country, selling out venues in a 5-state region. I had songs placed on TV shows and commercials and movies. I was charting. I was on the charts, all independently. I was no label, no record label, no publisher, no manager, no booking agent. I was kind of doing this all DIY. I was figuring it out and just doing it myself. And after a while, I got a bunch of questions from people like, how are you doing this? How did you, book this tour without a booking agent? How did you get your songs placed on TV? All of this stuff. I would get back to everybody, and after a while, word spread. You have questions about the music business, go ask Ari. And I just didn't have time to get back to everybody. So I launched a blog. I called it Ari's Take. I put everything up that I was learning on the blog, because I don't believe in competition in the music industry. I believe that a rising tide lifts all ships. We're all in this together. I was just sharing the information. Blog kind of took off, and it turned into, giving me access to talk to people in the industry. And so, started a podcast so I could open up and share these conversations that I was having. And then people would come to me like, all right, I've read your blog. I've read everything you've written, but I need something to connect the dots. What can I do to piece everything together? I need some guidance here. What books should I read? Now, I'd read all the music business books, and unfortunately, none of them were talking about what was actually happening in the new music business. Everything was talking about what had happened, and they were kind of stuck in this old school traditional mentality of like, this is how it has to be and how it is, even though it wasn't how it was. And so I'm like, man, all right, I got to write the book. So I wrote the book. It's called How to Make It in the New Music Business. And it's mostly about everything else that is happening, that has happened, and that is happening. And so I know some of you have read it. So cool. So let's get started today. But before we get going, I want to do a quick poll here. I'm going to pull this up. And this is going to help me understand who everybody is. And then it will, so let's see if you can kind of select this. If you're an artist, producer, and songwriter, that's all the way at the bottom. But let me know who you are, because this is going to help guide this conversation today. So click the button if you can. Awesome. So, all right, keep going. So we got a lot of artists, producers, songwriters. Almost 50% of you are like artists plus. Either you're just, artist and you're a songwriter, artist and producer. We have some managers in the room. Okay, cool. And if you're an other, I'm curious to know what the other is today. Just artist, producer, so you don't write music. Okay, gotcha. You're not a songwriter. Okay. Any others? Okay. Cool. So most of us here are artists, producers. So 50, 60, almost 75% of the people here today, almost 80% are actually on the creative side, let's say. Artists, producers, songwriters, all of that stuff. We don't have any attorneys. Whew. Okay, good. Because I don't want them critiquing anything. Great. I'm not a huge fan. Sweet. Touring bass player. Got it. That's okay, Gene. This was just for me. Because I want to this would help me guide the conversation. If today was all lawyers or all managers, this would be a very different conversation. But since most of us here are artists or producers, songwriters, all of that on the creative side, great. That's going to really help. Okay. And now, since there's so many of you here today, just a little housekeeping. We have Bea here. She is on the Tidal team from Brazil, and she is going to be monitoring the chat. I'm going to actually not pay attention to the chat until the very end when we do Q&A, so I can just focus on this presentation. Otherwise, we'll never get through it. So Bea will help you and answer some of your questions here, or just ask you to hold your questions until the end. But I bet whatever question you have as I go through it, if you just hold it for a couple minutes, I bet I'm going to get to it in just a few more minutes. That's just kind of how this goes. And then if you have pressing questions at the end, we'll answer them. But if there's something in the moment where you're like, man, Ari's talking a lot about this term and he's not defining the term, and I don't think I'm going to be able to understand the rest of this if he doesn't define the term, ask it. Bea will highlight it. It'll come on the screen and I'll be like, oh, yeah. Let me stop. Let me answer, figure out, the term I should define. Okay. So let's get into some terms. All right. Let's get into this. So terms that you need to understand. Artist versus songwriter. So we're going to start on, we got to lay the groundwork here. We're going to get into the royalties. We're going to get into how to get your money. We're going to get into all of that. But before we can, this is kind of the most important lesson that you're going to learn in the music industry. And if you don't know this, well, you've come to the right place. You're going to walk away knowing this information. There's a difference between the definition of artist and songwriter. And that's kind of at the start why I asked you, and this is almost not a trick question, but I was just curious to see how you would select it. The artist and songwriter are very, very different. And that's defined kind of in legal terms, in royalty terms, in rights, and all of that. So the artist is the name that's written on, the marquee, if you're performing, or, on the artist field on any of the DSPs, like on Tidal, when you're going to stream a song, it says, what's the artist name? That's the artist. Sometimes the artist wrote the song, sometimes they didn't. There's cover song, all that. Now, songwriter, oftentimes we don't know who the songwriter is of the song. Sometimes there's a bunch of songwriters on a recording, and sometimes, if you click into the credits section, sure, you'll see all the songwriters listed, but a lot of times people are both. So we had a ton of artists and songwriters here today. Personally, I'm an artist and a songwriter, not actually a producer, but I'm a co-producer, sure. But I write songs and I record and I perform them. That's both songwriter and artist. I bet a lot of us are in that boat. We write songs and we record them. So this is why it's confusing, because we're all like, but I both. It's like, yes, you're both, but let's talk about why we have to differentiate them. Okay. So this is the difference. The artist, SZA, and then the songwriter is Solana Amani Rowe. So this is a very important distinction. Now, when SZA has her artist hat on, she goes by SZA, and the artist name is listed SZA. When you're going to go to a concert, it's going to be a SZA concert, all of that. Now, when she's operating under a songwriter, as a songwriter, she goes by Solana Amani Rowe, her birth name. And that's what's listed in all of the rights organizations and all of that, which we're about to get to what that all means and where she gets her money as a songwriter and where she gets her money as an artist. But they're very, very different. So let's take Snooze, that just won a Grammy on Sunday for the best R&B song of the year. Her song Snooze. This is SZA's song Snooze. The artist is SZA. You guessed it. But look who the songwriter is. We actually have 5 songwriters. We have, of course, Solana Amani Rowe, which is her songwriter name. We have Blair Ferguson. We have Leon Thomas. We have Kenny B. Edmonds. We have Chris Riddick-Tynes. Now, can anybody tell me, do any of these names look familiar to you? Is there another artist amongst this songwriter crew that you know them by a different name? Yes. Pila Kangri. Babyface. Exactly. Babyface. Kenny B. Edmonds is also known as Babyface when he is the artist. When he is, producing it or performing as the artist, he's known as Babyface. But as a songwriter, he's Kenny B. Edmonds. Cool. And actually, which I didn't realize, I just noticed this. Kenny B. Edmonds is 64 years old and just won this Grammy, which is pretty awesome. Still going strong. Okay. And Deborah, if you joined us at the last title meeting, you did hear a lot about this. And that's because this is the most important information that you will learn in the entire music industry. I got to lay the groundwork. Stick with me for 5 minutes, and then we're going to get into stuff that we did not cover at the last title meeting. Don't you worry. I'm not going to waste your time for this free session. Okay, cool. So copyright. What is a copyright? This is also really, really important. So now that we understand the difference between artists and songwriters, there is a composition copyright and a sound recording copyright. There are 2 copyrights on every recording. There is the composition copyright and the sound recording copyright. Now, songwriters write compositions. Sometimes these are called songs. Artists record sound recordings. Sometimes these are called masters. 2 completely different recordings, 2 completely set of rights. Ownership and representation. Publishing companies represent songwriters, and they represent compositions. Now, record labels represent artists, and they own or represent or control sound recordings and masters. 2 completely different sets of entities, 2 completely different sets of rights, 2 completely different sets of money. So let's get into this. Sound recording versus composition. Now, Deborah, start paying attention. I did not cover this in the last session. Here we go. Let's break it down. So I don't know if you've heard this recording, but this recording is Joshua Ray Walker is the artist name. The song is titled "'Cause I Love You." Can anyone tell me, now this is a cover song. I'm going to give you a little tip. Can anyone tell me what artist did this song originally? Made this song famous, "'Cause I Love You"? Give me a thought here. Anyone can guess? Deborah doesn't know. Okay. No one has a guess. Take an educated guess. Don't worry. We're not going to great guess. Maroon 5, because we see Adam. Well, actually, you're thinking Adam Levine. This is actually Adam Levin, which is a different one. Nakia got it. Lizzo. That is correct. Very good. So we also have, yes, this is by Lizzo. Now, there's a bunch of songwriters on here. There's Casey Harris. There's Sam Harris, which none of you guessed, which I thought someone was going to guess X Ambassadors. Casey Harris and Sam Harris are from the band X Ambassadors. Adam Levin, that was a little trick because Adam Levine is in Maroon 5. I get that a bunch. Adam Levin. But then you see right there, Melissa Vivian Jefferson. There you go, Antonia. You know that Melissa Jefferson is Lizzo. So let's get into this. So let's talk about how the money flows for U.S. streams. All right, so let's break this down. I don't want this to be too confusing, but here's the recording we got right up top there. That is the recording of the song. Now, on the left side of this, the money for the recording we're just talking, for streams right now. A lot of the money. Oh. Nakia, hold your questions. Bea, please. Yeah, I'm about to get to that. Don't worry. I'm going to get to all of this stuff. I will explain it all. Thank you. Okay. So yeah, we'll take questions at the end. I promise I'm going to get to all of these questions. And if they're not answered by the end, I promise that I will get to them. Okay. So on the left side here, we have the money. This is how the money is flowing. So the recording is up at the top, and it goes all the way down on the left side. Soundly Music is Joshua Ray Walker's distributor. Sound Exchange comes from, and we're going to talk about this in just a second, some of these streams that come from digital radio go to Sound Exchange and then get paid to the artist right here. So bottom left, all the money that comes from sound recording goes this way. Some of it's collected by his distributor, some of it's collected by Sound Exchange, and then is paid directly to him, the artist. Now, the right side, it's a little bit more complicated, and we're going to get into all of this in just a second, how this works and how to get paid and how you're going to get paid. So we see Melissa Jefferson right here, a lot of you known as Lizzo. And we have the other songwriters here. These cats are in X Ambassadors. This is Adam Levin. As you can see, that's not Adam Levine. It's the other guy. But yeah, So some of the composition money flows to performing rights organizations. Now here, there's BMI. I know a lot of you are probably with ASCAP. I'm personally with ASCAP. Some of you might be with CSAC. There's different PROs in the US, and I saw someone in Canada. You might be from SOCAN. These songwriters are with BMI. And Melissa Jefferson is with Global Music Rights, which is another performing rights organization, PRO. Now, some of the money goes to the PROs, and then the PROs pay the songwriters, pay their publishing company. This guy's publishing company is Cobalt. These four actually happen to be with Warner Chappell Music Publishing. So they pay the publishing, pay them, and then a lot of that money goes to the MLC, and the MLC is the only organization in the US to collect US mechanical streams, which we're going to get to breaking down what that is in just a second. But this is how the money flows. So it's a lot more convoluted. Don't worry, I'm going to make this a lot simpler in just a second on the composition side. But this is all to show there's a lot of songwriters, there's a lot of entities, and if you're not registered properly in the right places, then you're going to miss out on a lot of money. So for instance, if you wrote the song and recorded it and you're not registered with some of these organizations, you're going to be missing out on your money. So let's just break down some of these and how to register, what these are, all of that. And I'm going to explain all of these. So don't worry. In just a few moments, you're going to learn and understand everything. Every question is going to get answered. Okay. How and why to register your copyright. All right. So why do you want to register? Why would you register all of this? Well, if you don't register, like we just said, you won't get paid. So if you wrote a song and you didn't register it in the proper places, you won't get paid. If you recorded a song and you didn't register in the proper places, you won't get paid. That's a pretty good reason for me to want to register my music. I want to get paid. Also, why you want to register, for your protection. And this is really important. The only way you can make a claim and take it to court is if you have a legal document for the copyright. Now, you've probably heard from your aunt or your uncle or your grandfather, or like a teacher way back in high school or whatever, saying like, oh, well, a copyright is just as soon as you put something in fixed, tangible form. That's what it says in the law. It's like, yeah, it's true. But like, what's the use of it unless you can actually take legal action against somebody if they stole your copyright or they infringed on yours, or if someone's accusing you of infringing on them? How does this stand up when it really comes to it in court? The only way you can take it to court or have any standing on court is if you register the copyright with the U.S. Copyright Office. So we all heard about the Robin Thicke Pharrell TI case where Marvin Gaye's estate sued Pharrell and Robin Thicke for Blurred Lines, their song Blurred Lines. They said it was too similar to Got to Give It Up. And they won. They won $7 million. Now, we're not going to debate and get into the merits of that. I don't really support that decision. But hey, it was not up to me. It was up to the jury. But guess what? Had that song not been registered with the U.S. Copyright Office, Marvin Gaye's estate would not have been able to make a claim against Robin Thicke and Pharrell. They would not have made their money. And then if you listen to the New Music Business podcast, you might have heard me interview the Billboard writer, Kristen Robinson, who wrote this article on how did two unknown Latin music operatives make $23 million from YouTube. The IRS says they stole it. How did these people steal the money? Well, a big part of it was that the artists and the songwriters didn't register their music properly, not just with the Copyright Office, but with all these other organizations. So this is the thing. You want to make sure you're registered. So where do you register and how do you get protected? All right. Well, we already talked about this. U.S. Copyright Office. This is where you just register the copyright. This is not going to help get you paid necessarily. This is just for protection. So you can go and register either copyright, whether you have the sound recording copyright or the composition, meaning you just wrote the song, you're not recording it, or maybe you are recording it. Doesn't matter. There's two copyrights. Some of these in the Copyright Office, you can select, you can do both. If you have a whole album of songs that you wrote and recorded, there's actually a form for that. You can pay a lot less instead of having to register each song individually. You can register a whole album there. And then you can also register just the sound recording or just the composition. So this will help you. I have an article on Ari's Take about this to break it down. It's you might want someone to help you with this if you're not super familiar with the system. If a lawyer was here, they would say hire a lawyer. I think lawyers are very expensive, but this is I'm not giving you legal advice here. But I will just tell you that I register all my copyrights by myself on the U.S. Copyright Office. Okay. Where else do you need to register? Well, a lot of you understand that to get your music out onto the DSPs like Tidal or Apple Music or Amazon or Spotify or any of the other ones, you need a distributor or a label to do this. So here are some of the distributors. There's literally hundreds of distributors out there. I didn't list hundreds. So you might be with a different one. Maybe some of you are with Amuse, or maybe some of you are with 1RPM, or maybe some of you are with whatever. There's tons and tons and tons of other ones. These are just some of the big ones. Yeah, The Orchard is another one. Quentin is a distributor. All right, cool. Venice, absolutely. Venice is a big one. So tons and tons of Believe. Yep, Believe actually owns TuneCore. So there's a bunch of distributors. AWOL. Yep, that's another one. So I'm so happy that you're so familiar with how distribution works. You need a distributor to get your recordings out. Now remember, this is actually a very important. I'm choosing my words very carefully this afternoon, this session. When I say recording, I actually mean recording. When I say composition, I mean composition. Now we know the difference. We know what the difference between sound recording and composition is. When I say artist, I actually mean artist. And when I say songwriter, I mean songwriter. Now we understand why these words are very important and very, very different. Songwriters, these distributors are not necessarily for songwriters. Some distributors have a publishing arm, but that's not their main business. And Quazim, you want to know what the best distributors? Literally, you Google Ari's Take distribution, and my chart will show up that will lay out 16 of the biggest distributors out there, and I compare all of them. There is no best necessarily, because everyone's in a different place. Some take commissions, some you pay an annual fee, some have different services. So it really depends on who you are as an artist and what your intentions are. But Google Ari's Take distribution. My chart will be the first thing that pops up, and then you can go through it, spend some time on there. Okay, so now we understand you register and you distribute your recording with a distributor to get to the DSPs, and the distributors will pay the artists. Okay, cool. What else are recording? So Sound Exchange. Let's break this down because there's a lot of confusion when it comes to Sound Exchange. Sound Exchange comes from like really just digital radio stations like SiriusXM, which also owns Pandora Radio. iHeartRadio is another one. In the US, Sound Exchange is the only organization that collects these recording royalties from digital radio. Now, in the US, there are no other royalties for Sound Exchange. It's just digital radio. Legally, they call it non-interactive streams, meaning you can't choose the song. So it's not Tidal that's paying Sound Exchange. It's not Tidal that's paying Sound Exchange. It's not Spotify or Apple paying Sound Exchange. It's SiriusXM. It's iHeart. It's any radio station that has a digital broadcast. So maybe your local radio station streams it on their website or whatever. They're paying Sound Exchange. And then really the biggest amount of money comes from SiriusXM. I believe they said they paid over $1 billion last year. So if your recordings, your music was played on SiriusXM or iHeart or significantly on Pandora Radio, there's probably money there for you on Sound Exchange. Now, when you go to Sound Exchange, there's and this is, let me break this down a little bit. If you have a distributor or a label, sometimes they're going to go collect some of the money from Sound Exchange. About half the money goes to kind of, they call it the rights owner side of it. And then the performing artist, which is all of us here mostly today, they collect the performer side of it. Now, if you're both, if you don't have a record label and you don't have a distributor that does this for you, and every distributor is different. Remember, somebody just asked me, what's the best distributor? Well, guess what? Some of them collect Sound Exchange, some of them don't. So you can just go to the Sound Exchange website, and if you're both, you can just click the both button. And then there's a bit more hoops that you have to jump through. But if your distributor or label doesn't collect the Sound Exchange rights owner side, then you're going to have to do that yourself. If they do, it's actually really simple. You just go sign up as a performer, you claim your recordings, and then boom, they'll start paying you. But again, not everybody is going to get paid from Sound Exchange, because not everyone is played on the radio, is played on digital radio. So you could be spun a gazillion times on, the biggest pop radio station on the FM dial, and you won't make anything from Sound Exchange because they don't collect from AM, FM terrestrial radio. They only collect from digital radio, and only for artists, remember, and labels. Okay, so now we're on the other side. You see the different colors here? So let's actually, the color coding here is very important. So we have a gold color here on the left side. We got like a salmon color on the right side for sound recording and composition. So these two are the salmon colored for the recording side. You can see top left, we got the recording here. And then now we're into the composition. So performing rights organizations. We have ASCAP, BMI, CSAC, PRS in the UK, SOCAN in Canada. We also have global music rights in America. There's a bunch. Every country has their own performing rights organization. Now, they pay songwriters and they pay publishers. And then we have, and let me just explain where this money comes from. Performing, this is just for songwriters. Now, they will collect, they call it a public performance. So if your song, your composition is played on terrestrial radio or digital radio, anywhere it's played, whether it's on the FM dial or on Sirius XM or whatever, they're going to collect. Also, if your song is streamed on any streaming service, they're going to collect from that. If your song is played in a department store or a coffee shop, theoretically, they're collecting from that. If your song is performed live at a music venue, theoretically, they collect from that too. Now, there are ways, for those of you that don't know, if you're a performing artist and you perform a concert, did you know that you can go into your PRO website backend and upload your set list, or input your set list, I should say, and then they'll pay you on that. In the States, it's not a ton of money, but internationally, if you ever do an international tour, you can actually make a ton of money. Jerry's asking, which one is Canada? SOCAN. They also have reciprocity. So just to be clear, you can only register with one performing rights organization. You got to pick one. So you want to pick one of them in your country. So in America, we have 4 or 5, maybe. There's a few that come up and go. Obviously, the biggest ones are ASCAP and BMI and CSAC. But Melissa Jefferson, aka Lizzo, is with Global Music Rights, which is another one, but that's exclusive, selective. You have to be chosen to be in that. PRS is UK. Canada, SOCAN. You just register with your country's PRO, and then they have reciprocity, meaning they will collect your royalties from all over the world, from all the other organizations, for all the other performing rights organizations collect that money. Okay, so now there's another part of money out there for you for compositions, and these are called mechanical royalties, and in the States, it's the MLC. So the MLC pays publishers or songwriters without a publisher. And just to clarify, the MLC only pays for US streams. So when your songs are streamed on Tidal, Tidal is going to pay the MLC for the US streams. Now, they will pay the international mechanical rights organizations outside the US. So if your song is streamed in Brazil, you're going to actually have to get that money, those mechanical royalties elsewhere. A publisher can help you with that. So admin publishers are like that. But if most of your streams are coming from the US, you can sign up directly with the MLC if you don't have a publisher. This is a new thing as of a few years ago, as 3 years ago. So let's break this down a little bit further. So this is the sound recording side. So recording royalties. So sound recording, let's just, if you can see here, at the top we have our artist, and they made a sound recording. Now it goes to the DSPs. Now what happened? But it also, the recording might get played on TV, radio bars in the rest of the world. In the States, that's get played on digital radio. Like I said, that goes to Sound Exchange. DSPs are going to pay your distributor, as you can see that, or your label. If you get on a TV show, we're going to cover that at in the end, all about kind of sync licensing, how the money works there. You'll be paid sync licensing. And then if you sing on like a union commercial or a theme song or something like that, then there might be some SAG-AFTRA royalties out there for you as well. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. So this is how recording royalties. And again, you're going to get this, you'll get the slideshow and a recording of this. So if you want to save this, you can also take a screenshot of this too. All right, now composition royalties, this is different. So here we have our little songwriter at the top. And when they write a composition, if it gets recorded, the recording gets sent to the DSPs. And now it's just a little bit different. So the DSPs are paying, like I said, performance royalties over here, you know, to your ASCAP, your BMI, all of that. But they're also paying mechanical royalties. So from DSPs, the streaming services pay performance royalties and mechanical royalties. So if you're a songwriter here and you're only signed up to ASCAP, I see we have a lot of people sign up to ASCAP here. Guess what? You're missing about 50% of your songwriter royalties if you're not signed up with a mechanical rights organization like the MLC, or you don't have a publisher that's collecting for you. So that's a big mistake that a lot of songwriters make, is they hear about ASCAP. They're like, oh, I'm signed up with ASCAP. I'm all good, right? No, wrong, actually. You're wrong. Or BMI, Corey. You got to be... and Cass, don't worry about the MLC. Can they be trusted? They are appointed by the government. They're the only organization. It's actually written into the law that they must be audited every 5 years. So it's not that they can't be trusted. It's just it's mandated by law that they have to be audited. So don't worry about that. Okay, so yeah, here we go. Okay, so now before I get into sync licensing insights, I do want to take a moment to just actually stop, because that was a lot of information, and I will take a couple questions here on what we just discussed. And let's see here. So if anybody has, just put them in the chat, because I think I covered a lot of the questions from the Q&A so far. Great. Sincere, I got some money from the MLC. No complaints here. Oh, Pila Kangri says, what about Songtrust? So Songtrust and TuneCore Publishing and Centric, and there's some other admin publishing companies out there. Yes, if you are with an admin publishing company, they will collect all of your publishing money, songwriter money. Publishing and songwriter can be used interchangeably. So when I say publishing, I mean songwriter money. Songwriter, publishing, same thing. Composition, all the same boat. So Songtrust, Centric, TuneCore Publishing, these are all admin publishing companies. They will collect 100% of your mechanical royalties from all over the world, and they will collect the publisher side of your performance royalties. So Songtrust does this, TuneCore Publishing does this, Centric does this, yes, all of them. If you are with an admin publisher, you do not need to sign up with the MLC to collect your mechanicals. If you do not have a publisher, I would recommend you sign up with the MLC to collect your mechanicals. Yeah, I know, Jerry. Is there one platform I can register to do everything I produce myself? Believe me, I wish there was. Unfortunately, the music industry is very fragmented, and no, we haven't figured this out yet. No, does DistroKid do it? Nope. Keep naming platforms. I'll tell you that none of them do it. Unfortunately, nobody does all of them, which is really, really frustrating. Believe me, I wish there was one place I could go to and tell you, just be like, this is the only thing you need to sign up for. Wouldn't that be great? Yeah. But I hope you understand now a little bit why it is so fragmented. And Gene, just so you know, I gotta say, I don't recommend Song Trust. And if there's anyone here from Song Trust today, I'm sorry, but I'm not really, because they've really dropped the ball. Their customer support has been really, really bad. They got flooded by too many signups, and I've spoken to people at Song Trust, and unfortunately, they kind of got really, really behind, and their pipes kind of got clogged up. So you actually can't sign up for Song Trust anymore. They've stopped unless you have. There's a threshold. I believe it's over 1 million some streams or something like that. So yes, TuneCore Publishing. Natalie says TuneCore Publishing is good. Cool. $75 one-time fee. There are admin publishing companies out there that you can look into. Okay, cool. It seems that we all are on the same page about this, and so let's move on and let's start talking about some syncs. So yes, and just to put a button on this, if you have a publisher, an admin publisher, they will collect all of your publishing royalties, your mechanical royalties here, your performance royalties here, all of it. Okay. So let's talk about sync licensing insights. So for some of you that attended the sync workshop that we gave a couple weeks ago, you got the full deep dive on sync. We are joined by my friend Vo Williams, who is a sync god. He's had over 3,000 sync placements. If you're here and you didn't watch it, thank you, Sincere. Amazing workshop. I'm glad that you enjoyed it. You can get the replay, I believe. So Tidal will send you a way to sign up for that workshop. Sandra, cool. But what we didn't talk about in the sync workshop, because we just didn't have enough time, was really, oh, today is the last day to watch. Okay. So great. We can go check it out. But Bea can let people know how to get access to that sync workshop. Since you're all part of the Tidal community now, you should be able to get access to it. So what we did not discuss in the sync workshop is how the money flows for sync really in depth. So I want to cover that today. But before we get to that, just to break down exactly what sync is and what a sync placement is, I'm going to just show you my very first sync placement that I got that changed my life, and I'll explain to you why and then how I got paid, and I'm still getting paid to this day. So this is on the TV show One Tree Hill. This aired about 10 years ago, and I'll show you. Let's see if I put my name on the screen.
If you knew this was
Why is the store closed, and why are you lying on the floor?
I'm trying to pick a place to hang myself.
Don't be so dramatic.
Apparently, it's best to find a load-bearing beam. I don't think we have one.
All right, I'm going to
Best part of
forward.
this. Julian didn't sleep
Hear the
with
music
Alex.
still. Second
Well, have
scene.
you told him?
Still going.
Not yet, but I think
Still going.
passions. Just give your head.
Still going.
Mm.
Go to the fast forward to the end of the scene.
Hi.
What would you do if you knew this was our last kiss? How would your lips move?
Oh my God.
Okay, so let's talk about that. So that was a long placement. They call it in context during the TV show. And because I wrote that song and I recorded it, there was bunch of different kinds of money that I got for this. So we're going to talk about first off, the licenses. Thank you, Asha. So because I wrote the song and I recorded it, there were 2 licenses that I had to issue. I had to kind of give them clearance. There's the sync license for the composition. I didn't have a publisher at the time, so I just issued it directly. And then there's a master use license for the recording. I also didn't have a record label at the time, so I just gave them the license for the recording, but I didn't give it to them. They paid me for it. I got an upfront fee for that. So, how do they get these licenses? Well, if there's a record label involved, they're going to get a music supervisor is going to get one from a record label. If there's a publisher involved, they're going to have to get one from the publisher. If there's a sync agent involved, that's usually the intermediary for indie artists, or directly from artists like me. I was a very rare case. This was happening more frequently 10 years ago. These days, it doesn't happen as much. But let's break this down with another song. So using our example, Joshua Ray Walker covering that Lizzo song. Let's say that the TV show Wednesday on Netflix wanted to use this recording of What Is It Even? So let's talk about how that works. So Netflix would have to obtain the license for the composition from the publishing side on this side here. So from the publishers, there are 5 songwriters involved. So they need to go to all 5 songwriters representatives, their publishing company. 4 of them happen to be with Warner Chappell Music. That's just by coincidence. One of them happens to be with Cobalt. Sometimes 5 songwriters have 5 different publishing companies. And then for the recording side, they went to Josh Ray Walker's sync agency, which happens to be Secret Road, to clear the recording. So the music supervisor who was working at Netflix had to clear all of this from all of these 3 different entities to use the song if they wanted to use it in Wednesday. And then the arrows actually, so this is licensing. Now payment, see the arrows go the other way. Netflix then pays for these licenses, and they have to pay. Usually how it works is it's typically 50-50. 50% of the money that they pay goes to the recording side, and 50% of the money goes to the composition side. That's typically how it works in sync. Not always. There's no law about this. It's just usually split 50-50 that way. Now, there's back-end royalties. Like I said, I'm still getting paid back-end royalties from that placement on One Tree Hill 10 years ago. And I'm getting paid as a songwriter, you guessed it, from ASCAP. Now, if this song got placed on Netflix for Wednesday on Josh Ray Walker's song, or I should say recording, then all of these songwriters would get paid the back-end royalties from their PRO and their publishing company. Okay. Do we have the sync stuff understood on just how the money flows? And again, if you want to learn more about everything sync, you can rewatch the session that we just gave with Tidal on that. Okay, so let's talk about, I know we have a bunch of producers and songwriters here today. So let's break down how producer points work and songwriter splits work. Because it's a very confusing thing when somebody says, "Oh, am I going to get points on this? Like, how many points does a producer make? Oh, the producer wants points on the master, but he also wants some publishing. Who's getting publishing?" There's a lot of terms that's thrown around that makes everything really confusing. So let's break it down. Okay, so we remember let's just remember this color. So right now we're going to talk about the sound recording copyright, this side of this, and usually this is with artists. Okay, so this we got this salmon color here. All right, so how do the royalties work? Well, usually a producer is going to get some points. They call it points. That just means percentage points on the master. So in like the major label world, usually producers are making anywhere from like 3 to 7 percentage points. They call them points for shorthand, but all it is just 3 to 7% of the total royalties, total money that comes in. The producer is going to make, a few percent of the total money that comes in, and the label will pay them. Now, the artist typically on a major label deal is making around 15 to 18, maybe 20%. And we're going to call those points. That's in a major label. Most of us here are not part of the major label system. So why do we need to mess around with the major label discussion? We're not going to. We're going to talk about how it works in the independent world, because most of us here are independent artists and producers working in an independent world, not dealing with major labels. So let's talk about it. Most of the time, a producer is going to get around 15 to 25%. That means the artist is self-distributing. The artist, uses one of these DIY distributors. The artist is going to make 100% of the money from the distributor. There's no label involved. And so of that 100% that the artist gets, they might pay their producer 20%. Okay. And you can kind of see, when the pot was this big and artists were only making 15% and producers were making 3%. Yeah, that's you divide 3 by 15, you're 20, So now we're talking, well, the artist actually gets 100% and the producer might get 20% or something like that. But how this usually gets negotiated is more money up front for the producer's fee, usually less in back-end royalties. So if the producer's like, hey, I charge $2,000 to produce your track and I want 20% royalties at that rate for back-end, for master royalties, you could be like, well, I only have, will you do it for $1,000 up front for a fee, but then maybe do 25%? And that's part of the negotiation. Sometimes when there's no money exchange, it's usually done 50-50. So a producer and an artist will come together and be like, hey, I don't have any money to pay you, or I'm not going to pay you. Or the producer's like, hey, I really believe in this project. Let's do this. No money exchange either way. We're going to split everything 50-50 in the royalties because there's no money up front. That's typically how it works on the recording side. Remember, we're just talking recording. Now let's talk about the composition. So this is totally different because maybe the artist and producer are producing a cover song and they actually don't have any composition or publishing royalties, any of that. But let's say they are doing a song that they wrote. So sometimes there's co-writers with them. Sometimes they bring in a couple other people that help write the song, come up with some lyrics, that kind of thing. And they just make some songwriter royalties, some publishing royalties. Songwriter, publisher, same word. So sometimes the producer is a songwriter on the track. Sometimes they're not. There's no law with this. It's you just discuss this up front with your producer. For me personally, I've only cut in a producer to the publishing royalties if they helped me write the song or they helped me like doctor a song or something like that. But more times than not, I'll bring a song to a producer and be like, hey, do you want to help me make this recording? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, all right, the song is finished. You don't get any composition royalties. You're not a songwriter on this. They're like, yeah, of course not. I'm not a songwriter on this. I didn't help write the song. I'm like, great. That's when we discuss this deal. I'm like, okay, how's, $1,500 up front, 20% back end. Cool. 0% songwriter because you didn't write the song. Understand the difference now? Some producers will actually, in their deal, to be like, you know what? I'm going to put so much magic on this, and this is the first time we're doing this, that I want publishing. In hip hop is very common. The producer's like, I wrote, I'm creating the beat, so I want 50% of the composition, the publishing. Which is different than the master. Maybe they'll be like, all right, I'll still take 20% of master royalties, but I want 50% of the comp, or if there's two of you, there's 50%, or you split it up equally. So it's very, very, very different. Jerry's asking, what about mixing and mastering engineers? Great question. I have literally never, ever, ever, ever heard of a mastering engineer getting back-end royalties ever. Period. Full stop. Mastering has never received royalties that I've heard of. I don't think that has ever existed, to be honest. If I have, I'd be extremely surprised. Mixing, superstar mixing engineers sometimes can get like 1%, only on the recording side, never on the publishing side. Maybe a mixing engineer will get 1%, but that's again on the major label system. So if we're dealing with this like 20% producer, 80% artist, the mixing engineer might get like 0.00, like very, very normal. When it comes to me, I've been in the independent world. I've literally never paid a mixing engineer, and then mixing engineers never asked me for royalties. It's not common. It's not common at all. Now, if the producer is mixing it and mastering it, well, that's just part of their producer contract, and that's going to be in there. But they should not get more back end royalties because they're mixing or mastering it. It's all just part of the contract. Yes, I've worked with producers, but they made that 20% or 15% or whatever it was on the back end master royalties because they produced it, not because they mixed or mastered it. Okay. Any questions about that right now? All right, so we're going to take a 10-minute break, and then when we come back, we are going to hear from a business manager, going to help you understand the role of business management, and we're also going to hear from a product manager at Tidal that's going to help answer all of your questions about any question that you might have about Tidal and how to be more successful with that. We can talk about Jerry has a question about split sheets. We'll get into all of that at the end. So let's take 10-minute break. I got 12:57 my time. So by 1:07, we're going to get started again. Go to the bathroom, do whatever you need to do. And then when we come back, we're going to hear from a business manager and a product manager at Tidal. All right, we'll be right back. All right, and we're back. Cool. Welcome back, everybody. I was actually answering some of your questions just via chat in the Q&A during the break. So thanks for sticking with us. And I now want to invite to the stage Chloe Churko. She's a business manager. She's also an artist manager, Berkeley alum. Chloe, come on down.
Hello. Can
Hello.
everyone hear and see me? My landscapers are just leaving. They are late, and so you might hear a little bit of leaf blowing, but they are working their way to the front, so it shouldn't be too loud for long. Sorry. I tried to coordinate that. But hi, everybody. I'm Chloe Churko. I am a business manager with Pink Noise Management, and I am a producer manager and a recording studio owner. I own the Hideout in Las Vegas, which is the largest recording studio here in Vegas. We actually just did, we just spent 4 months working on Usher's halftime show. So we did all of that here with his producers, and it was really cool. And I'm excited to see it live because I've been hearing it and I kind of know what's going to happen, and I'm excited. So that's what I do. I also prep catalogs. I do catalog sales. I'm really knowledgeable in royalties and bringing in, making sure all the royalty streams are correct. And that way we can sell the catalog for the full value, because that's what a lot of people are doing now. They're selling their catalogs and then they're undervaluing them because they're not collecting all their royalties. And as you heard from Ari, there's a lot of places to collect money. So it adds up, and it takes time to really make sure you're getting every penny possible, which I believe it's impossible to get every penny, but get as close as you can. So we'll start with just like, what is a business manager? I handle primarily all of the day-to-day bookkeeping, that kind of more boring stuff, mundane, invoicing, paying bills. As an artist, I might be paying your hired on musicians when you're touring. I might be doing tour reports. Just like say the financial side of things, I'm kind of handling all the money and making sure that it's going to the right spot and you're budgeting accordingly so you don't run out of money. A lot of things I've been hired for as well is, say you get a really good publishing deal and you get a big advance, say you get $100,000 advance. You don't want to blow through it because you're not going to be making publishing for a while you recoup that. So I kind of help navigate moving that money around and making sure that you're, living off of it, but also not, blowing through it, because it's easy to when you get a bunch of money like that. So I do that. Like I said, that's more the day-to-day. I do like tax prep, I don't file taxes, but I'll prep it for the accountants. I might help with like navigate investment portfolios. I don't do financial advising, but I kind of know if you need to set up an IRA or, that kind of boring stuff. And then, like I said, I do catalog prep. I'm also hired side to just source royalties. Some people go, hey, I know I'm not collecting my royalties. I actually just had a meeting with a very well-known producer from way back in the day that has never seen a royalty statement for some massive projects that he's worked on. And a lot of people really can drop the ball on paying. They don't enter their contracts in with, say, major labels. But even on an independent level, there's a lot of independent artists who are making a lot of money that aren't paying their producers. So I generally source royalties for producers and making sure that they're getting them. As far as the business management side, a lot of people ask me, when do I need a business manager? When should I be hiring someone like you? I always say there's kind of two answers to that. Number one is the best time to hire and expand your team at any capacity is when you don't want to do it yourself. You're over it. You are spending way too much time sending invoices, way too much time trying to find all your royalties. Hire a professional, because sometimes they can do it faster and get it done, and you don't have to think about it. When people who aren't in the music industry ask me what I do, my first answer is always, I make sure that musicians can make music. I make sure that all their back end is taken care of so they can just be in the studio making music. So when you feel like you're at a point that you're taking away from your art or your songwriting or your producing because you're dealing with all this business stuff, it might be time to hire someone. The other more technical answer to that is, if you're making enough money to afford one, they can be expensive. A lot of them work off of commission. So if you're only making $20,000 a year, it's gonna be really hard to find a business manager who will do all of that work for 5%, say an average of 5% on that $20,000 that you've made that year. So I usually say you shouldn't look for a business manager until you're making about 100 to 200,000 a year. You should be able to find a business manager in that range that's willing to work on commission. There are hourly business managers and there are flat rate commission or like flat rate retainer business managers out there. A little harder to find. They are out there though. But you have to obviously be able to afford one, and the amount of work that a business manager may do, like I said, at 5% of say $10,000 a year, they may not want to work with you quite yet. Now, if you're in that point where you're not quite making enough, but you want to get organized, there are some recommendations that I have to help get people organized. And I do that as well. I do consulting with people who maybe can't hire a business manager right now, but they want to get things in order. The number one thing is just getting organized. Get set up in like a QuickBooks or a Wave or Quickens, just something to get your kind of banking set up, and you can watch your expenses and watch your income. A lot of those have invoicing built in, so you can send invoices if you need to for things like sync licenses, invoices if you're a producer to clients. It helps just keep it all organized. A lot of it you can automate so that it sends out a reminder in 2 weeks to that client, so you don't have to like log in every day and send reminders when you got to chase money down. You can automate it. You can charge late fees if you want. It'll all kind of do it there in those software. So I do recommend that. And there are some really good affordable options. There are some free ones as well that at least can get you on a baseline setup. And it makes you look a little more pro if you're sending a true invoice that looks a little fancier than an email of, hey, pay me $500 for that work I did. So I do definitely recommend that. If you are going at a higher capacity of setting up your catalog properly, then you want to get into like Google Sheets and get some spreadsheets going and some templates. And that can get, I mean, for me, it's fun. I don't know, it's probably not fun for you, but for me, it's fun to get those going. But having just as organized as possible and try to be as accurate as possible, make a list of what everything Ari just said, make a list of all the places that you should be collecting money, and then go through them one by one and go, okay, I got to get registered with a PRO if I'm not already, or I don't like my PRO. I want to move to this other one that's highly recommended. And then maybe you're moving over. I want to get stuff on Sound Exchange. Just go down the list and make your way through it. That really helps. I use also like an app like Monday.com, which just helps me organize like my deadlines and stuff. That's helpful for like reminders. If you send an email to someone and you got to follow up, you can set yourself a reminder. Google Calendar. There's an endless amount of software that you can download to use to keep yourself organized. But having a real scope of your income and expenses is really important, because at the end of the day, we all want to pay our bills, even if we're making music. So you got to be able to keep track of those invoices and make sure you're getting paid. You can automate. One cool thing I track is just royalties. If I know that a PRO is paying my client 4 times a year, I set reminders in my calendar, ask Cap to pay so-and-so, and I make sure that that payment came through, and I check that statement over. The PROs are generally pretty accurate. I don't usually have too much trouble with them, but as a producer, if you do some work with a major label or an independent label, any third-party label, you know, you might want to check that statement and make sure you got the statement. A lot of my clients will just do work for years and never even follow up on a royalty statement, and maybe that song got 4 sync licenses that they didn't even know about, and they didn't get paid for, that they were supposed to get a piece of. So, you know, when my clients work on a project, I put it in a spreadsheet and go, this is when I'm supposed to expect my first statement. And I give, you know, a 2-week grace period before I start harassing people. But, you got to go in and start collecting that money. So if you're not paying someone like a business manager to do that, it's really good to stay organized early on, because it's very hard to go back. And it's very hard to go back if it's been years and years and years, and band members or artists have passed away, or they are not working anymore, or labels have shut down. It's so much harder to find those royalties when those things happen versus kind of keeping on it from the beginning and having that contact person throughout time. So some of the other things that I might help facilitate, which is more sometimes can be on the legal side. I know there wasn't really any lawyers in here, but making sure agreements are in place. I usually get to see all the agreements because I need to make sure the royalties are accurate. So I'm going to look at those agreements. If it's a producer agreement, I'm checking for how many points they're supposed to get or what percentage of revenue they're going to get. If I'm checking publishing statements because I'm prepping a catalog and I'm checking all those publishing statements, I might need to know all the splits. So I need to see songwriting split sheets. band agreements, player agreements. I see all that stuff so that I know where the money's coming from and where it needs to go, if it needs to go out to other people. I also prep royalty statements for producers, for artists. So I need to know what I'm supposed to be paying all these guys or what their statements should have on them. One thing I've learned, I've been in the music industry now for, I don't even know now, 10 or 11, 12 years. Get it in writing. Get everything in writing. Every song you write with a group of people, even if it's on the back of a napkin, write it down. If it's an email that you're all copied on and you're all acknowledge, I approve, get it all on writing. Because I've seen so many husband, wife, cousin, brother, sister, parents, whatever go down. We've all seen it. And that just doesn't even mean just writing the song. That's like everything to the, I say this jokingly, but I'm in a family business, the momager. Even if your mom or dad or uncle is managing you or helping you out, just have a light, this is how much commission I'm paying you. So that's written down somewhere and it's acknowledged by both parties. It doesn't have to be a 10-page contract, but have it written down. I just read this article. It's a little older now, but I don't know if you guys remember the comedian Dane Cook. His business manager was his brother, and he stole $6 million from him. It was insane. And he had to testify in court. And I think he might have even went to jail or did some kind of house arrest time. Write it down, have it in writing, and check everything, including songwriting splits. There's nothing worse than songwriting going awry because someone thinks they wrote more than they did, or they thought they were all splitting equally, and then they didn't when they registered the song and they only got 10% or something like that, and it can get really messy. I saw a couple questions in there of how to determine how to split up a song. You have to agree together. I work a lot in the rock world. The rock world is generally, we're a team and we split equal. Whoever's involved in the songwriting splits equal. That's usually what I see. In hip hop and pop, it's a lot different. You might give 50% to the performing artist, but then, all the writers behind it get a couple percent each or 10 or whatever. So it really has to be established in your group of people who are writing it, because you might also be kind of ghostwriting. I mean, there's so many different ways to break it down. I had a client who was in a session where they counted all the words that were written and they divided it equally amongst everyone who wrote those words. That's a little excessive, but there isn't a real formula. It has to be decided. Some people will say the chorus gets more higher percentage. Like I said, I work in rock mostly, and we're a team sport it's just usually divided equally amongst everyone who was present for the writing. So yeah, everything in writing. I know you guys know that, but that's really important. I want to stress that. Checking all your registrations is important. Ari talked a lot about all the places to be registered with your PRO, with, the MLC, the Sound Exchange. I'm a Sound Exchange expert. I am hardcore about Sound Exchange because there's a lot of money there. If you're getting Sirius XM play, it's a lot, and it's important to be registered properly. And there isn't really a manual of how to do that. So if you're an artist or a performer and you're registering your songs on Sound Exchange, you can go right into Sound Exchange and there's a search and claim function, and you can search all your songs and claim them and claim your percentage. You can do it as a rights owner as well. However, if you're a producer, you can't use that feature. You have to get a signed letter of direction from the artist. And so it's really important to include that in your contract if you're sending a contract to an artist so that they can sign it all in one go. But it's harder to collect Sound Exchange as a producer if you're getting producer points. But it's really, really important, and it can be very problematic. And same thing as all of this is, the longer time goes on when you haven't been collecting properly, the harder it is to backtrack and get paid, retroactively. Sound Exchange will go back 2 to 3 years, depending. Some of the PROs will also go back in time a little bit if you file kind of later. But it's not guaranteed. If you're hoping to get paid from a label, sometimes they'll only go back a year. Sometimes they won't go back at all, and they'll go, okay, we'll pay you from now on. So it has to be really, really, you'd be really cautious about that. There's a bunch of royalties. They go into what they call the black box. Any unclaimed royalties will go there, and after a certain period of time, they distribute that money to all writers in proportionate amounts. So, I like to keep that number to a minimum. I want to say last year it was, I don't even want to say the number. You Google it, whatever the black box was for 2022, 2023. It's a lot, and it doesn't need to be if you're registering all your stuff properly. I always get a spreadsheet, put all your titles that you've ever written in there, put your split, what your percentage was. I do a column for every place it needs to be registered, and then you go in and check it all. It can be tedious, but again, worth it. And it's easy to roll your eyes and go, oh, well, that song's probably only making me $10 a quarter. Big deal, it's $10. But over time, all those $10 songs add up, and then it's $1,000 a quarter, it's $10,000 a quarter. So to get it right from the beginning, and then it's automated, and you can set it and forget it. Once Sound Exchange is collecting properly, and the PROs are collecting properly, and your distributors are collecting, you don't have to think about it much more. I like to spot check once in a while still those statements to make sure it's still right. But for the most part, it's automated once you get it handled properly. Another thing which might not be relevant to a lot of you guys if you're more independent, but there's a lot of kerfuffle over Sound Exchange doing direct licensing deals with labels. So instead of Sound Exchange paying the performer, they're paying the label, and the label is paying the performer. But the problem that's kind of happened is a lot of these labels aren't telling the performers they've done those deals. And it's independent labels that have been doing it, and major labels. So it's good to look that up. I know Universal's kind of been involved in that lately. There are a couple other labels that did the same thing, where all these artists had no idea that their Sound Exchange money was going to the label, or sorry, not Sound Exchange, their SiriusXM money. SiriusXM is doing the direct licensing, so it's not going through Sound Exchange anymore. It'll just go directly to the label, and it is starting to happen more and more. So keep eyes on that. If you don't follow like some of the music business magazines, online magazines, it's good thing to keep an eye on as you start distributing, because there's some weird stuff going on that I think will add more places that you need to collect your royalties. But yeah, for the most part, like that's a lot of what I do. I know you guys are looking at some of these questions in here about who collects Sound Exchange. Like Ari said, look it up through Ari, searching it through Ari's blog there. And some of them do and some of them don't. But you can register yourself. It takes about 10 minutes to register, and about a week or two for them to approve your registration. And then you're good to go. And you can go in and search your titles. You can get paid monthly, quarterly. It's easy once you're in there, but you just got to get in there and do it. Oh, Ari posted the link, so even better. You can compare who collects where and what. And if you're with someone already that you like that doesn't collect Sound Exchange, you can totally go in and do it yourself too. But yeah, that's pretty much all I had. I was just giving you guys a lay of the land. Yeah, Sound Exchange does have a minimum of what they pay for you, Natalie. Like I think it is $100, but it might be $10. I remember thinking it might have been 10 at one point in time, but they won't pay you out if it's less than that. And once it is, it'll collect, but once it is, it'll be there. If you log into Sound Exchange, like I said, there's that search and claim function. Search and claim, you can search your artist name. Even as a producer, you can search some of your own projects that you've worked on, and you can see if they're claimed or not. And if they're not claimed, but they're in that database, that means there's just money sitting there doing nothing. And I would say 90% of the time someone asks me to check that area of Sound Exchange, there's unclaimed songs. Sound Exchange will create iterations of your songs. And so you may register at one time, but an iteration has happened, and it might be like, song name Sirius, because Sirius has somehow recoded your song in Sound Exchange. So it's a lot, and I've told Ari I could talk about it for hours, and I don't want to bore you guys with the details because it can.
No, that was amazing. That was not boring. I was like, yeah, everyone's like, you're hired. Chloe's hired. No.
I know. Like I said, I could talk about it forever. And I was gonna say, if anyone ever has questions, I'm usually pretty happy to send me an email or send me a message on Instagram or whatever. I'm happy to talk about it. I do Q&As quarterly on my business Instagram as well. So if there's anything money related or business manager related, I'm here to help if you guys ever need it.
What's your Instagram, Clara? How should people get in touch with you?
My Instagram is my name, Chloe Churko. I'll just type it in the chat because it can be hard to spell if it's not somewhere on the page here. And then my business is Pink Noise Management. I'll put that on here too. But yeah, and thank you, Ari, for having me too.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. That was so great. And yeah, I always learn stuff when I talk to you. And just to clarify, because there's so many services out there that sound so similar. It's no wonder that you know, like the Sound Exchange and Sirius XM, people get confused by it. So just to clarify, Sirius XM is a digital radio station. So it's like, it's satellite radio. So oftentimes cars will come with Sirius XM satellite radio in the car, and so you just like click a button and you have all these radio stations. That's Sirius XM. It's just a radio. It's just a radio network, you know. And so it's like it's called satellite radio for those of you that have never used Sirius or whatever. It's just radio. It's just another kind of radio. Typically the Sirius XM, they have to pay royalties, and so they pay songwriters performance royalties through the PROs, like we talked about, like ASCAP, BMI, whatever, and then the artists, they also have to pay royalties too, and labels, and that's usually it's been to Sound Exchange, like Chloe was talking about, but sometimes now, which I didn't realize was happening as much, SiriusXM will skirt around Sound Exchange, cut direct deals with the labels and say, guess what, Sound Exchange, you're out of the picture. We don't want to work with you. And they can do that if they agree, if they cut these side deals. Now, Sound Exchange is like it's a government, or it was appointed by the government, the US government. It's just like, you know, but they can get around that. The reason labels are doing that is because Sound Exchange pays out 50-50, pays 50% to the labels and 50% to the performers. Labels are like, we want more. So they're like going direct to Sirius and be like, guess what? We'll give you a better deal if you pay us more. And that kind of screws the artist. So, you know, it's something that like isn't great, but it's starting to happen. So anyway, stay up here, Chloe, because we're going to now be joined. We're gonna do some Q&A, but I want to bring to the stage Tom McMichael, who is a product manager at Tidal, focused on royalty reporting and payouts. Previously, he was a software engineer and product manager at Spotify, focused on publishing, credits, songwriter pages, Spotify for publishing. And Tom's experience is on the technical side and touching on mechanics of how royalties actually get calculated, reported, and paid out. Tom, what's up?
How you doing? Thanks for the intro. Yeah, good, thanks. And nice to virtually meet everyone. Yeah, as that introduction said, used to work at Spotify and working on their track credits feature. So if you think about, like, you know, when you see a song and you see what the credits are, there's a lot of tech that goes behind to make sure they're up to date. So I worked on that, as well as Spotify for publishing, and sort of thinking about like actually how these organizations take that musical work, that registration that you have in that database, how that actually gets matched to the content on the streaming platforms. I don't know quite a lot about that process, and so can answer some questions there. And yeah, currently at Tidal, focused on the actual royalty reporting funnel.
Awesome. So yeah, so let's take some questions. And I have I'll start with this first one. And I just want to clarify maybe. Oh yeah, there's the Q&A section there. You can do it. And while we're getting the questions queued up, I'm just going to clarify this real quick, because I think there's some confusion of who we should be registering with. So for most of us that are independent artists and songwriters, if you're in the US, there's 4 places that you need to go register. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 is your distributor. 2 is Sound Exchange. We just talked about that. And just so there's no confusion, Sound Exchange is the royalty collection and issuing licenses. Sirius is just a radio station. So I don't get confused. Sirius is a radio station, just like iHeartRadio, Pandora Radio. There's hundreds of radio stations out there. Sirius is just a big one. Sound Exchange is where you register. You don't register with radio stations as an artist, as a songwriter, as an artist, excuse me. And then 3 is the PRO. So this is for if you're a songwriter, your composition side. So pick your PRO. And then 4 is the MLC if you don't have a publisher. So it's kind of either or in this situation. It's either the MLC or a publisher, an admin publisher. So 4 places, that's it. It sounds a lot more complicated as we broke all this down, but it's 1, 2, 3, 4. And so that's it. Okay, so let's get some questions going. So Bea, feel free to highlight some questions for us, and we'll take them as they pop up on the screen, so we can kind of do this. So Ashlyn McKnight says, if you're producing instrumental music, is it the standard to still use your legal name as the songwriter versus artist name, especially as an electronic music producer writer. Tom or Chloe, do you want to take that? Otherwise, I can give my take on it.
No, you go ahead. I was going to say, usually I do still see legal names in that case, but I'll tell you.
Yeah, I'll start off. And I'd be curious if Tom sees anything in the back end, but, you know, as we want to differentiate between producer and songwriter. So if you are saying, I think when you said, you know, you're producing instrumental music, you know, theoretically you'll have two names. You'll have the artist name or the producer name if you're making that, you know, and that's the artist name that's on the project. And you could have a producer name that's just like, you know, different, like Phineas is a producer, but Phineas O'Connell is the songwriter. You know, and most of them will go by their legal name registered with their publishing company and their PRO. Now that being said, you know, like for instance, I know Lady Gaga goes by Stephanie Germanotta as the songwriter. However, Bruno Mars, he uses an alias. He uses the alias Bruno Mars, and as he registers with BMI. BMI allows aliases, but more times than not, I've seen the legal name no matter who you are. Like we showed the example of SZA, Lizzo, Lady Gaga, all of that. They're using their legal name no matter who you are, just for the publishing registration. So as the songwriter, remember we have two hats we wear. We wear a songwriter hat, we wear artist hat. When you got songwriter hat, like that SZA, Solana Imani Rowe example, you know, when you're a songwriter, you got your birth name. When you're an artist, you got your artist name.
Yeah, and I can add to that from the technical side. If you use different names, if you think about like how the royalties are going to be paid out, the publishing rights organizations like the PROs, they have to somehow connect like the music that you've uploaded to streaming platforms with your work registration. And so if you upload your song, if you distribute your music and you put the songwriter name like just with an alias, so like SZA, but then you've registered your work under your legal name, Solana Rowe, then those are the PRO is going to have a real hard time matching those things. And so one of the big reasons of these black box royalties that you'll hear about is because people are using different names, and there's basically no way to connect the two. So being consistent on like the music you're distributing, the recording side, and those registrations is going to be really important to actually collect all the royalties. Because the organizations, they only have text to work on. That's the only thing they can match together.
That's a really great point. It's not enough to just be registered. You actually have to make sure that it's all connected.
Right.
So that's really important. Cool. All right. Got another question from Delavie. I have my own LLC set as my publisher to collect on ASCAP. Is that the best practice? So let me break that down a little bit. So if you don't have a publisher, and you're just going direct, meaning you're going to register as a songwriter with ASCAP, and you're going to register as a songwriter and your own publisher rather with the MLC, and you just don't have a publisher, then yes, ASCAP pays 50% to publishers and ASCAP pays 50% to songwriters. So if there is no publisher connected to the songs that you wrote and it's just your songwriter, you're actually going to be missing out on half that money. And so yes, you can register your own LLC, your own company, or a DBA or what. You don't actually have to get an LLC together for this. But then you'll get all of your ASCAP money. But that being said, if you have a publisher or an admin publisher like a TuneCore Publishing or something like that, they'll go in and act as your publisher with ASCAP, and then ASCAP will pay 50% to your admin publisher and 50% to you as the songwriter. But that's a good practice for that. But make sure that you then go register with the MLC too if you haven't, because like I wrote in the chat earlier, about half the money from streaming services go to the PROs, for composition royalties, for publishing royalties, and half the money goes to mechanical rights organizations like the MLC. So if you're only registered with ASCAP, you're missing about half your money because ASCAP and BMI and the rest, they don't collect mechanicals. That's a really, we got another question. There's like, does BMI collect mechanical royalties? Nope, they do not. They only collect performance royalties. There's two kinds of publishing royalties from streaming services out there: performance royalties and mechanical royalties. And if you're only registered with PROs, you're only getting performance. You're missing your mechanicals. Do we have another question? All right, Dante Fumo, sound exchange question. During registration, if you choose to receive money as a business, it gives you options of C Corp, S Corp, LLC, C Corp, partnership, but no single member LLC choice. This will be a Chloe question.
I actually haven't seen the registration in a little while. I did one last year, or a couple last year, like 2023. So it might have changed. I know Sound Exchange was implementing some changes that you had to have Sound Exchange pay you directly if you were not set up as a corporation or a partnership. Like they wouldn't let you do it through a single member LLC because there was some tax withholding issues with Sound Exchange. I don't know the drama there, but basically if you were setting up as like a single member, because they used to allow that, they were withholding like 24% in tax when they were paying you, and then they would send you that 1099 at the end of the year. And I think it created a little bit of a mess. So I think Sound Exchange is done with that. And now, unless you're a corporation or a partnership, it actually just has to go to you as you, like under your social security number. Now, as a rights owner, I don't know if they allow you to do a single member LLC as a rights owner. That's the only thing I'm unsure of. But I believe as a performer now, they're not paying out to single member LLCs.
Interesting.
It's new though, so I haven't looked into it. Like I think that kind of went into effect later last year, like in the fall.
Their
So I'm not
customer support is pretty good. So
really
you
good.
can just hit up their customer support and ask them these questions directly. Okay. Luis Bien, if the Sirius XM would go directly to label, should independent artists register with Sirius XM?
I'm sorry, I confused everybody.
You opened this can of worms, Chloe.
I know. I can answer this really easily, though. I can answer this really easily.
You what?
I can answer this one really easily.
Please.
Like simplify this. Okay, so you don't need to register with Sirius XM because Sound Exchange is collecting Sirius XM unless you are like signed to a major label that is doing a direct deal. So Universal is known right now to be doing it. So if you are signed with Universal, then you need to talk to Universal about your Sirius XM, the money that Sirius XM would have been paying to Sound Exchange. But if you're an independent artist and you're not signed to a major label that's doing these direct deals, Sound Exchange is collecting your Sirius XM money. The best way to check is open your statement. Open your Sound Exchange statement. It's one of the largest ones that pay out. So it's usually right at the top and it'll say like Sirius XM and how much money you got from them, or iHeartRadio, how much money you got from them. If Sirius XM is missing and you know 100% you have play on Sirius XM, then you want to dig deeper. But Sirius pays about $40 to like $70 per spin. So it's I mean, it can be a lot if you're getting Sirius play. But no, if it's on your statement on Sound Exchange, you are okay. And you don't have to worry about registering anywhere else for your Sirius XM.
And just to clarify, because this is confusing, and Sandro just asked, I believe, I'm not sure, I do distribution with 1 RPM. They also collect your Sound Exchange. So Sound Exchange will only, so by law, Sound Exchange has to pay out half of its money to rights owners, labels typically, and half of its money to performers. So if you have a label or distributor that is collecting the rights owner side of Sound Exchange money, so 1 RPM, they might collect Sound Exchange. Like somebody said earlier, CD Baby collects Sound Exchange. You know, some of these distributors will collect sound. When they say they're collecting Sound Exchange, they're only collecting 50% of it. You still have to go to Sound Exchange yourself. Every single artist in the world, whether you're signed to a major label, indie label, no label, distributor, literally Taylor Swift needs to do this, okay? Like it's not because we're on a major label or indie label. Every single artist, she has people to do this for her, but every artist needs to go to Sound Exchange or has their manager go to Sound Exchange and they need to register an account as a performer, and then they need to go and claim their recordings that may have been put in by 1RPM or their major label or whatever. So it's either you're going to go in and be like, oh, someone has already registered my label, or my distributor has already registered my works with Sound Exchange. Sweet. All I got to do is click the buttons that claim them. Or if you're with DistroKid or TuneCore, they don't work with Sound Exchange. So you got to go in and be like, you know what? I got to click the both button because I'm both. I'm both the performer and the rights owner. I don't have anyone doing this, so I click the both button. Hopefully that clears it up a little bit more. So Sandra, even if you're with the Orchard, they're only getting 50% of your Sound Exchange money. You still got to go and register as a performer. All right. Please clarify more. Is licensing different from what DistroKid, PRO, AMD, I don't know what AMD is, MLC does? So is the licensing, do you mean sync licensing, Jerry? What do you mean by the licensing? I'm assuming you mean sync. Yeah, just well, I'll answer how I think you're asking this. And I'm registered with DistroKid. Okay. Yeah, so I'm gonna pull up that thing again for everybody, because I can't hit it enough here. Let me get to that right screen. So there's 4 places to register. If you're with DistroKid, that's only one. So I'm going to clarify. DistroKid is 1, or any of these distributors. 2 is Sound Exchange. We just talked about Sound Exchange for a while. 3 is your PRO, ASCAP, MICSEC, whatever. And 4 is the MLC or a publisher. So, and this is if you're a songwriter and an artist. Okay, so this is only for streaming royalties we're talking about. This is not sync. Hopefully that clears it up some more. 4 places. Okay. Another question. Oh, let me ask this anonymous. I don't know, Bea, you want to highlight this? It says, to clarify, I saw on Sound Exchange website that SAG-AFTRA fund, yeah, has that changed? Okay, so what I didn't talk about today is that there are royalties entitled to session musicians that play on a recording, and that is paid out for digital radio royalties. So if you're a session musician, meaning you sang backgrounds on a recording, or you play drums on a recording, you're not the artist, you're not the songwriter, there still is a little bit of money entitled to you if that recording got played on digital radio, like SiriusXM or Pandora, iHeart, any digital radio. To go get that money, you got to go to it's called the fund, the SAG-AFTRA fund. So I don't talk about that as much because that is it can get a little bit confusing, but that is session musicians. Go check that out. Okay. Anyone else? Let's see. Anthony Domingo. I'm an artist with DistroKid distributor, but I am registered with ASCAP, MLC, and Harry Fox agency. Okay, that is going to get confusing. How would I get paid from Tidal for my mechanical royalties? Would it be through my distributor? So mechanical royalties are collected through the MLC. So Tidal will pay the MLC, and then the MLC will pay you, the songwriter. Harry Fox, so for those of you, and I don't know, Chloe or Tom, if you have more experience with Harry Fox, but Harry Fox used to be one of these entities that collected mechanical royalties before 2021, because this is where it gets convoluted. In 2021, the MLC formed, so they're like this new organization, based on this US law. So like Harry Fox used to collect some mechanicals from the US streaming services. They don't anymore. However, they still will help some publishers with their admin work. So like if you're a publisher and you register with Harry Fox, they can go and help you collect your international mechanicals and stuff like that. They just can't collect from the MLC. Excuse me, they can't collect from streaming service directly anymore, the mechanicals. They have to use the MLC for that. Is that right? I don't know if Tom or Chloe, you have any more experience with Harry Fox.
Yeah, when the MLC was formed, I think the Harry Fox agency, their database was transferred to MLC. So some of the data in the MLC is just kind of been inherited in the initial matching technology to kind of find basically all the covers of like your work. That technology was from HFA originally, and now the MLC's kind of moved on and has partnered with other companies as well.
Cool. Do you work with the MLC or with the Harry Fox at all, Chloe? Have you done any stuff there? No.
No, not usually. I deal directly through the publishing companies a lot of the time.
Yeah, most publishers either have direct deals with the mechanical rights organizations around the world, the MLC being the US one. There's a bunch all over the world. Harry Fox is it's almost like an agent for a publisher, as you can think of it like that. Like they'll do the heavy lifting for like an indie publisher or something like that. They'll go and collect it. Now they had to change their business model when the MLC was formed 3 years ago. So that would be a question for Harry Fox directly, because they've changed so much that they have different terms now with their clients still. Krita, can you explain the benefits of becoming a publishing affiliate with BMI? I'm assuming publishing affiliate. I'm assuming that what you mean is it's the similar thing, like we talked about ASCAP before. It's the same answer for BMI. Is BMI pays 50% of the money to publishing companies and 50% of the money to songwriters directly. If if you don't have a publisher, BMI will actually pay the songwriter all the money. But the benefit of having a publisher register with BMI is that when BMI goes and collects all the other performance royalties from all over the world, from all the other performing rights organizations, they're going to want to know who the publisher on record is for this. And so if you have a publisher register with BMI, and it's your own company or something, and your songwriter registered with BMI, then it's just a lot cleaner. They can collect all of it. But again, if you have a publisher, or admin publisher, then they'll register with BMI properly and do this for you. Okay, let's see here. Gregory has a question for Tom. Can you explain what a stream is, the value of a stream, how it is calculated by streaming services, pretty much anything to share some light regarding streams?
Yeah, I can keep this pretty high level. I think the main important thing to kind of think about is, so the way that royalties are calculated for streaming is, no matter what streaming platform it is, they generally all use the same royalty model today, which is every month all the revenue that is collected from subscribers. So if you have 1 million subscribers, that's 10 million in revenue. If you have 10 million subscribers, that's 100 million. So that you've got this pot of money, and then the platform itself will then say, okay, we're going to pay out. It's generally around 70% of that money that gets allocated into like a royalty pot, and then depending on how many streams are played on that platform, you basically get a percentage of that royalty pot. So if you have 10% of streams in a given month on Tidal or on Spotify, you'll get 10% of that royalty pot, roughly speaking. That gets paid out to the distributor or label. So it's really not really a pay per stream rate. You're getting a percentage of the revenue that platform has generated in a given month. So if Spotify is doing really well, or Tidal has suddenly got double subscribers, you're going to see double the money. And that's roughly how it works. But there's different agreements with different labels and licensing, and that there's some nuances to it, but like it's helpful to just think of it as you're getting a percentage of the streaming platform's revenue based on the percentage of streams that you have in a given month.
That's a great explanation. Anthony Domingo asked, am I missing money if I've only been paid from my distributor for over 100 songs and 250,000 streams with no performance royalties or no performance? Short answer is yes, you're missing money. How much money? It tends to be, and Chloe would probably know better than me on this, but I have found that it's about a fifth of the amount of money is earned from streams for the publishing side than is for the recording side. What have you seen, Chloe? I don't know if you have a better breakdown.
Yeah, I've never really thought about it like that, to be honest. To me, it's just all money that needs to be paid. But yeah, I get that's probably, when you break it down like that, that's probably pretty close, I would say. Yeah. I mean, it depends on what your distributor's collecting too, if they're collecting other places as well. But you're definitely missing money 100%. But yeah, that's probably right.
Yeah. Another way to put that, just if you made $100 from your distributor, there's probably $20 sitting out there for you from performing rights organizations and the mechanical rights organization. It's not a perfect science. It doesn't really, but just from what I've seen when I've studied the reports, it kind of works out that way.
I'll be running ratios later now because now I'm curious because I can
please tell me what you see. I want to know.
I'll be running my spreadsheets going, what is that ratio?
Yeah. Cool. Let's see here. Let's see. Oh, here's an interesting one. As an independent artist, I have radio play on BBC Radio, Rinse FM, and a few others. I register my songs on my PRO, BMI, but would there be any other agencies I would use to make sure I collect all radio royalties? Now, Anonymous, I have a question for you. Where was the record? Where did you record this? It matters. And I'll tell you why in a second. Where did you make the recording? Can you let me know? Well, let me just I'll give you the answer and then you can tell me. But if you made this recording in the US, then you only get paid for digital radio streams in the US. Sirius XM that we've talked to a lot because they pay the most. Pandora Radio, iHeartRadio, that thing. If you recorded that recording in a studio outside of the US, like the UK, maybe you went to Abbey Road in London or something like that, and you made that recording there, then you're entitled to what's called neighboring rights royalties and on the recording side. And then you're going to want to register with a neighboring rights organization in your country, and they will collect all the royalties on the recording side, that we're talking about, the sound recording, for any performance of that. So radio, terrestrial, digital radio, and there's a bunch of other places that they will collect. But it matters where you made the recording actually of that. That's a little known thing here that we don't really worry about too much in the States. Richard Paritza, we recently calculated everybody's favorite game, how much they made per royalty. 0.0021 royalty rate from our distribution on average over the past year. Does this seem low? Mostly Spotify streams. I'm going to let Tom take this one.
Yeah, I think the numbers, if you equate them to a per stream rate, do generally seem quite low. This seems very low, but like I think you can Google and see what it changes on a monthly basis, right? So as Spotify is generating, or any platform generates more revenue in a month, you'll see the pay per play rate change, right? So if everyone listened to twice as much music in 1 month, then everyone's pay per rate goes down. One thing to call out here is that, different platforms charge different amounts. So like Spotify is a free tier, and so you'll see the pay per rate be less for them because they have a very big free platform, and that basically dilutes how much money gets paid per user. But for platforms that only have a paid tier, you're going to see a higher payout rate. But yeah, just remember, it's sort of your payout is tied directly to the streaming platform's revenue and user behavior. So if more people listen in a month, or if the platform has more revenue in a month, then you're going to see a difference in your check.
I have a question, Tom, about that. Does the rate also change if the streams came from like the US or Brazil or India or the UK? Like, does it matter where the streams came from?
So the royalty reports are generated on a country by country basis.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's the revenue per plan per country that gets split up. So the royalty part is not as simple as just one big part. It is sort of per plan per country.
That makes sense. Yeah, because in the States we pay, I mean, what Tidal costs, can be between $15-$20 or whatever a month. But in Brazil, it's going to be a lot cheaper just because the weight of how much is a dollar is worth there, or in India or wherever, it's going to be cheaper. So we'll probably make less because the royalty pool will be less money theoretically. So yeah, I guess stream share, something like that. Okay, that makes sense. Cool. Right on. Maybe let's see, 2 more questions, and we'll see. Ebony, what is the best homework to continually test this knowledge so we can better understand what all of this means? This is such valuable info, yet seems foreign at the same time, at least for me, unless I can get hands-on since I am not doing it in practice. Well, I'm going to do I got a book on all of this. If you want to check it out, you can read chapter 13 by the book. But Chloe, what do you do to stay up on this stuff?
To be honest, I schedule calls with other people that work in different parts of the music industry. I have quarterly calls with people to chat about our quarter. Just friends of mine who work in major labels, that work at other business management firms, management offices, and we just usually chat about what's going on and what we're seeing so we can kind of keep each other afloat. And there's some really good Facebook groups and stuff that will post news articles or updates on what's going on. But I find the most knowledge I've earned is from learning from other people's experiences or my own. So things like Ari's podcast, listening to other people talk about things, and then a lot of the time you can fact check it and look it up online and find articles of what's going on. Music Business is it worldwide? I am subscribed to, so I'll get articles from there to see what's going on in the music world. But that's the best place as far as I know. And Ari's book, all 3 versions.
All right, thank you. Tom, how do you keep fresh on this stuff? I guess you're working day to day on it, so it's just fresh right there.
Yeah, we have to deal directly with the labels and these organizations and get really into the details of the contract. So yeah, but I do think subscribing to blogs and stuff is super helpful. Yeah,
some of the good ones that I like. I mean, we can share whatever you read, but Music Business Worldwide is a good one. I subscribe to that. I subscribe to Billboard. I subscribe to, I write a column for Variety. So, I'll give them a shout out too. But also, Water and Music is a good site. They're kind of more technology focused, but they dig into a lot of the stuff. There's Digital Music News, there's Hypebot. So yeah, I don't know if there's any other ones that you guys like reading or listening to or anything like that, but it's my list.
Music Ally is also quite
Music Ally is great.
The articles are very brief, so it's just 3 sentences and what's been happening. So
Yeah, it's a good one. Nice. Cool. All right, last question. And before we do that, I just want to thank everybody for coming and thank Tom and Chloe for your wisdom and your knowledge. This has been great, and I appreciate so many of you showed up to a session on royalties and registration and licensing and all of that, because this is not as sexy as a topic as like sync, which was our last one, or like release strategy, but I would argue this is the most important topic that you're ever going to get, because this has to do with how to get paid. And like, if you want to have a career, you kind of have to understand this stuff. The other stuff's like fun to talk about and to fantasize about. But like, if you want to run a career, this is the most important stuff. So we'll do one final question. And Chai the realist is saying $500,000 or a dinner with y'all. Wasn't the question $1 million for Jay-Z? But I'll take that. I know we're not quite at that Jay-Z level, so but you're choosing the dinner. I appreciate that. So all right. So for the final question, let's see here. Well, I guess there's been a lot of question. Oh, let's see. Oh, here's one. Oh gosh. Okay, this is complicated. Great. This is going to challenge us. From Freddie. I wrote some songs with my sister who had a major label career as AME Lorraine. I had an administration deal with Warner Chappell for those songs under that publishing company. I have a publishing and songwriter account with ASCAP. Was it a mistake to put my newer songs in the same publishing company account at ASCAP? In other words, should I have started a new publishing company ASCAP account? My understanding of what you're asking, Freddie, is if you no longer have this publishing deal with Warner Chappell, then they shouldn't be claiming those songs. And it's important to look at your contract with Warner Chappell on what songs they actually represent and for how long. And because some publishing deals will say, we are going to represent and own every song that you write that comes out over the next 5 years. Some will just say, we're only going to represent these songs that you hand us and that are on this sheet. So it really depends. But I would guess for all your newer stuff, you should just register them separately. I don't know, Chloe, or if you guys have anything. If it makes any.
Yeah, I mean, if it's on the songwriter side, you can keep registering it where it is, because that's for you personally. But yeah, the publishing side, it really depends on what their contract is and if they're still claiming or how long they claim for. If not, you can use them though. I have seen people like come out of publishing deals and use their same account because they've released their rights. Like if they're not dealing with your stuff anymore, that PRO isn't going to go through Warner Chappell anymore if they're not claiming it. So it just depends on what your deal is.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you all so much for coming. Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Chloe. Thank you, everybody who is here. And I appreciate you all. And you will get the replay. So if you came in late, and you'll get all of that. So wonderful. Have a wonderful rest of your day or evening. Thank you all. Take care. See ya.